Facebook live chat is author Billie Best. Billie has been a family friend for a really long time. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. And full disclosure, Billie Best gave me my very first professional job. She hired me to paste up ads. Those of you under the age of 40 probably don't know what a paste up is, but that's a blog for another day. But she hired me to make ads for a magazine she was the editor of, and within a few months I was the art director of the magazine, and then the magazine went national, and I was 21 years old and the art director of a national magazine. So Billie Best gave me my wings and taught me to trust in myself and believe in myself, and I've always been grateful for that. And she was my favorite boss and the best work environment I've ever worked in, and always eternally grateful. But Billie's gone through another couple of lifetimes since then, including working in the business world and then giving it all up to become a farmer, and more recently selling her farm, and now she's written a book about her journey. So without any further delay, we'd love to welcome to the Facebook live chat, Billie Best.
There you go. Now you're live, Billie.
Hi, Billie. Where is she? I don't see her.
She's there. Yeah, I can see her.
All right, as long as everyone else can see her.
Let's see if everybody else can see her. Let us know
Hi,
if you
Billie.
can see Billie, everybody. I'm going to check on the technology while you two start.
Yeah, I can't hear her, so.
You cannot hear her. Okay, I can.
I'm live. I just got the.
I can hear you now.
Yeah. You can hear her now? Okay.
Hi, Bill. How you
doing?
So we're just going to ask you a few questions to start, but we want to encourage everybody who is tuning in to chat us some questions for Billie or us or each other, to just join in the fun. So Bill, let's start by talking about what you're most passionate about.
Well, that's a really interesting question right now, isn't it? When the world is changing so fast. And the last time we had a three-way conversation, what we're living through today is pretty unimaginable back just a few months ago. Yeah. So my first answer, the answer I would have given you before the coronavirus pandemic, was that I'm very passionate about disrupting aging. I just turned 66. My memoir just came out. I feel like I have a third of my life in front of me, and I'm very excited about all the things that I want to do and say, and the points I want to make, and the women I want to meet, and the stories I want to share. And at this point in time, the virus has put a whole new wrapper around that. So I'm very passionate about being in touch with women right now and helping them survive and thrive during this set of challenges.
So how are you doing that? How are you personally surviving and thriving, and how are you helping other women do that right now?
Well, personally, I'm working at it, right? Because personally, I live in a studio apartment, and I have a dog, and I'm in the city of Portland, Oregon, and I'm in social isolation. I have been, quote, in social isolation since March 8th, but 4 times since then I've gone to the store. And my last visit to the store was this past Friday, where I really stocked up. And now my plan is to not go out for the month of April. And that's a mindset, right? To say, I am going to walk my dog 3 times a day. I live in a lovely neighborhood along the river, so I'm very fortunate to be able to have that daily connection with nature. But my plan is to basically not leave this room except to walk my dog for the next 30 days. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm really trying to get my head screwed on straight about it and feel strong and intentional and like I have a purpose here. My purpose is to contain the virus and to not get sick myself, right?
Yep.
um, that's it for me. Now sharing my story. So I have a blog. My blog is at my website, billiebest.com. And the blog is called Beyond 60, Loving Life, Staying Relevant. And of course, that title makes it kind of obvious what my point is in doing the blog. But again, the virus has changed everything. And I feel like we need to create strong communities for ourselves. We need to have a circle of friends and relationships that we know and trust that will be there for us, if only online, right? If only like this, face to face in the virtual world. We need the human contact. We need to feel the love. We need the points of connection. And we need a strong sense of trust in that community, because the new golden rule is I protect you, you protect me, right? That's how this whole thing is supposed to work. So right now, sharing stories, my own story and other people's stories, is a way to both entertain and educate and hopefully give people a strong sense of community.
Yeah. And we would love to know what everybody else is doing during this time, how they're getting through this social distancing. We're assuming a lot of you are staying at home right now. And
Yeah, tell us what you're doing.
So drop us a comment on how you're surviving the coronavirus quarantine, or stay at home if you're doing that. And if you have any questions for Billie, definitely ask them, because she's eager to answer any questions you might have. I mean, one of the things we saw you doing the other day was planting seeds.
Yes, we love that.
Before we get into why you were doing that, why don't you go back in time and tell us a little bit about your own personal journey and how you ultimately became a professional seed planter for a while.
Well, I think there's some very interesting parallels between the pandemic and 9/11. And they're not the obvious action parallels of what happened circumstantially. I think they have more to do with what's happening in our minds. That after 9/11, that's 2001, I was 47 years old. And so honestly, that was like 19 years ago. And when I was 47, I was at the top of my game. I felt like I was brilliant. I felt like I knew what I wanted to do. I was very successful in my career in marketing consulting, specializing in this new thing you might have heard of called the World Wide Web, and this crazy concept called websites, and the idea that big companies could have big databases to make big decisions. This was what money was made of in the 1990s. And I was good at it, and I made some money, and I bought a farm, and boom, 9/11. I was unemployed overnight, like many people are right now, because of all of these orders for the pandemic. At home, at the time, it was my second home. It was a farm in the country. I just started cleaning the outbuildings on this farm because we had bought it as a country house. We lived in Boston. And honestly, I thought of the barn as a big walk-in closet, and we were going to take that chicken coop and make a guest house out of it. And I wanted to take down all the other outbuildings and use that rough old wood in the house for design projects. And then I just found myself cleaning, which is my stress response. My stress response is cleaning. My apartment is very clean right now. And I started cleaning those outbuildings on the farm, and I was so curious about all the things I was finding and why it was laid out the way it was and what people were doing there 100 years ago. And I kind of got into agriculture, and I was unemployed. I was unemployed for 1 year. And so I was depressed. I was kind of angry. And of course, because of 9/11 and what a tragedy that was for our country, I was sad. I felt like I wanted to do something. And how could I be useful? How could I do something more than just make money? And I decided it was farming. So I started farming after 9/11 by visiting other farms and taking classes and workshops in farming. And in, I think, 2003, we got our first flock of chickens. And in 2004, we got our goats. And in 2005, we got our cows. And I farmed from that time until I sold the farm in 2016. And it was the most amazing experience of my life. And it's the thing I'm most proud of all my accomplishments, including the pile of money I made. The thing I'm most proud of in my whole life is having built a work farm.
Yeah, you should be proud of it.
So tell us a little bit about your journey of what happened and why you sold the farm.
Well, quite a few things happened all at once. And the farm was going into debt. And instead of getting a job where I could make money again, I decided to keep farming, which was really a money loser. And my husband had taken a full-time job. He was making money. And basically I was spending his paycheck to keep the farm going. And as you might imagine, it caused quite a lot of drama in our relationship. And for me, and this is a really interesting thing about women in midlife, I was like at the peak of my powers. I was going to farm. I was figuring out how to farm. I knew how to farm. This was my farm. And nobody was going to stop me from farming. My husband would have rather gone on a European vacation. And so created quite some significant tension. And we didn't really work it out before he got cancer. And when he got cancer, it was stage 4 lung cancer. It was terminal. And he was diagnosed in June, and he was dead in January. But 3 months before he died, in September 2008, he invited his mistress to the farm because he thought we should be friends. Yeah.
Good idea.
Hello.
Chemo brain. Let's just call it chemo brain, right? I mean,
With a little bit of man thrown in. Let's go.
It didn't go well, and yet he was dying, and we knew it, and it was a very bad experience. I was very traumatized by the whole thing, but I pretty much sublimated it and kept it a secret because my husband was dying. And I did not want my last hours, days with my husband to be about her, right? I wanted it to be about us. And so I really swept it under the rug until after he died. And then after he died, I completely fell apart. And after he died,
can I interrupt for a sec? So you didn't tell anybody, you didn't tell your friends or anything, you just carried that burden on your own?
I told 2 friends, and I swore them to secrecy.
Wow.
I had to tell them to make sure I wasn't just hallucinating. And so I told 2 friends. And we didn't really discuss it a lot because I didn't want to discuss it. And because I was really busy trying to save my husband's life, which obviously didn't work out. So no, I did not tell my friends. I did not want my husband's affair to be community gossip. I was embarrassed by it, and I even felt like on some level it was probably my fault. So I was shamed by it.
Sorry. It was not your fault. Just
Yeah.
in case you needed to hear that again.
I do know that now. I do know that now. But here's the deal. When you keep something secret for a long, long time, it has its own toxicity, right? And you're keeping it locked up inside your head. You're not allowing yourself to fully express those emotions. You're not airing your thoughts. And one thing about like even having a conversation like this, I'm hearing myself talk about my own experience, and that feedback loop between what I'm saying and what I'm thinking is helping me understand myself. And when you keep things secret and you refuse to talk about them, you deprive yourself of that sort of mental evolution. And I did. I did really talk about it at all. I expanded to a few more friends several years after my husband died, but I instantly discovered that they shared my anger and even showed anger that I didn't have, that I wasn't willing to show. And I found that upsetting. And I felt protective of my husband. Look, I put my marriage on a pedestal, and so did a lot of other people. I thought we were the coolest people, and a lot of other couples wanted to be like us.
Yeah. I did.
And so I wasn't ready to give that up. You know, that was my ego. And I just wasn't ready to give that up. I had to get really, really mentally messed up, very, very mentally unhealthy before I saw that I had to really come clean, be completely honest, tell all my secrets and let them go before I could really heal from that experience.
Yeah. So did that lead to writing a book?
Can I, Nancy, can I for a sec? Can you guys both turn your volume down a tiny bit? Because I think we're getting feedback because one of your volumes is just a tiny bit high.
Okay. So is that the speaker on my computer?
Yeah, just the volume. Like, yeah.
Is that good?
That's better. That seems better. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah.
Because I have a very loud voice.
You sound great. We love that.
Amy, should we address some of these comments?
Yeah, I'd like to give some breaking news. Nan, do you want me to give the breaking news?
Sure, go ahead.
So first of all, we have a bunch of people that have joined us. So hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So Billie, Pamela Schlov, man, say her last name. I'm sorry.
Like Dr. Scholzvick.
Sorry, Pam. Pamela Scholzvick, who is a dear friend. She's a Passionista that we've interviewed, and she also just launched the 2020 Quarantine Book Club group on Facebook, which is sweeping the nation. And she commented and said, I picked Billie's book to include in this list for Reader's Digest. Went up today, and there's a link in the comments that everybody can click on, and they could read the digest review of Pam's book club, and that mentions Billie's book. And I think that's a good segue into talking about Billie's book.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And a shout out to Pam and the Quarantine Book Club, because I joined it when there were only like 400 members, and now it's probably hitting 1,000.
Right.
And I have been listening to, I believe it's called The Mountain Song or When the Mountains Sing. And I'm really enjoying it. So it's about the history of Vietnam. And I live in the Pacific Northwest right now. And I feel like my understanding of Asian history is really woefully inadequate. And so it's a fascinating story of really the last 100 years in that country and how those people survived. So great book.
Great.
Thank you, Pam. My book. Okay. Another great book. Okay. If I do say so myself, the title of the book is How I Made a Huge Mess of My Life, or couples therapy with a dead man. It's a true story. It's a lot of what I just described right here in the last few minutes. It goes much deeper into the specifics of the details and also into my emotional evolution, because I became very mentally unhealthy by harboring so many secrets for so many years. And after I sold my farm in 2016, which I was forced to do partly because of finances and partly because of age, I drove around for like a year, like, you know, Dorothy lost on the yellow brick road. I was really just trying to figure out where home was. And I landed out here actually because of your sister, Beth Harrington. And yay! And, DeVito, who is living here, and my friend Annette Fitzpatrick, who was also living here. So 3 women, Beth, Carla, and Annette. And I was really just coming here to visit them. I thought I would rent an Airbnb apartment and, you know, hang out for a few months and keep driving. And it turned out that renting an apartment in Portland was less expensive than Airbnb, which makes a lot of sense if you think about how the Airbnb market works. So I rented a studio apartment, the room I'm sitting in right now, and I was just going to camp here. I didn't have any intentions of staying for a long time. And that was at the end of 2017. And in the year 2018, I was working with another friend, Jennifer Browdy. She's a memoir coach. And she was coaching me through writing my book. And here's the thing about the title of my book. It's not called Crazy Wife Farm. But that was the title of my book until I started working with Jennifer, and she just kept coming back at me with this question. Yeah, but how do you feel? How did that make you feel? How did your feelings change what you did? What was the impact of your feelings on your decision-making process? So I was so willing to talk about how I got cows and why I let my goats keep their horns and how the coyotes chased the chickens. But I did not want to talk about what really truthfully went down in my heart with my husband and how that made me feel. And even like now, like even just saying those words, and this is the thing about learning to talk about our truth, I can feel emotions come up inside me that are like residual emotions from a really bad experience in 2008 that has just lingered and lingered and lingered because I really haven't fully processed it. My book helped me process it because by telling my story and getting it all out there in text, you know, right in front of me, I was forced to describe it. That was very therapeutic. I was forced to put events into chronological order. That was also really therapeutic to realize, you know, the sequence of events. And I had to make a choice between having a successful book or keeping my secrets. And, you know, the thing about secrets is people like to read about them, you know. Everybody wants to know everybody else's dirt, right? So my book is titled How I Made a Huge Mess of My Life because for a very, very long time, that is how I felt about myself. And I thought it was important to have a title that knocked me off my pedestal, right? And I made a lot of mistakes. And also that just shared this idea that at some point we all make a mess of our life, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting. I wonder if people would be willing to comment on what their memoir title would be if they were being really honest with themselves.
That's a great question.
So anybody that wants to, I hope Beth Harrington will be more than happy to play along. What would your memoir title be, ladies?
The subtitle of my book is Couples Therapy with a Dead Man, because I realized that so much of what should have been dealt with inside my marriage in the 2 years before my husband died, when he was in therapy for depression, I was just, back to that thing. I was a steamroller. I was pushing through it, I was really into myself and what I was doing. I was high on my powers and my intentions. And I had no intentions of stopping what I was doing, putting my whole thing on pause to really reconsider the health of my marriage. It didn't even occur to me to do that, not for 1 second, until my husband invited his mistress to the house for the weekend. And of course, by then it was too late. By then it was just way too late. By then he had chemo brain so bad he couldn't really talk about it in a way that was astute. And so it wasn't helpful. So my book is also about this idea of how you go through psychological processing of a drama with another person after they're gone. It could be a parent that died, right? It could be a spouse that died. It could be a child that died. But I think when somebody dies and then we have this period of grief that's a lot about reliving everything we've been through, it's natural to wish that we had been able to have those thoughtful conversations, those healing conversations long ago.
Yeah. What do you think is the thing you learned about yourself most while writing this book?
Well, I am a neat freak. And my stress response is cleaning. Here in the pandemic, I'm feeding my dog rice, and every day I find myself walking around this room picking individual rice kernels off the floor. I do have a vacuum. I couldn't get out a broom, but what really satisfies me? Walking around barefoot, and when I step on rice kernels, picking them up one at a time. So I'm a little bit that way mentally too, and that was definitely part of my problem. I was too good at compartmentalizing. In a way, my mind was too ordered. And so I took trauma that I had experienced that was very real and hurt me, injured me permanently. I put it in the box in the back of my mind. And I left it there because it made everything else in my life tidier. And I do see now that if there are a lot of dust bunnies on the floor in my apartment and some dirty dishes in the sink, it's probably a sign of my good health.
Yeah. I wish I had the clean when you need to process things out. I'm a dust bunny.
My husband Rob is the same way, and I congratulated him the other day for letting us have dust bunnies in the house.
We do have some memoir titles coming in.
Cool.
Pam's was raised by teen wolves. Hold on, I'm trying to get to all the comments here. Lisa Barbosa's is a Chihuahua, a lobster, pronounced with a Boston accent. Like that. Catherine Reynolds says, untethered life, turning 55 in my 55th home. Oh, that's interesting.
That's very cool.
And Claudia Cordova, I can't read her title right now, but her subtitle
She says,
is
From Pain to Passion is her title.
Perfect. And then the subtitle is How Investing in Myself Helped Empower Others. Love that. Claudia is all about empowering other women. She's awesome. Oh, and here's Pam's. Pam's was raised by teenage wolves. I like that one.
Excellent.
Well, it's a great way to think about your life, and an entertaining way. And I think a way to love yourself and accept yourself and really get clear that we all make mistakes and failures are the stepping stones to success. So embrace your mistakes, embrace your failures. Don't feel shame and don't feel like you have to hide them in order to be accepted. Because sometimes being really honest about our mistakes is the thing people love about us.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's true. There are probably women who are watching right now who have their own stories to tell. Can you talk about the actual process? And again, if anybody has questions for Billie, just drop them in the comments. But can you talk about the process of bringing this book to the world? Like, did you have a publisher? How have you made this happen with your own,
Well,
get and go?
I founded a publishing company, Widow Speak Publishing.
I love it.
You can't really see it, but there's this little white box on the back of the book, and that's the logo, which I think you'll find amusing if you have a chance to look at it, because there's a little inside joke there. And Widow Speak Publishing is my imprint. I founded it because I wanted to have control over all of the rights to my book, and I wanted all of the income from my book, and I wanted to control the release process for my book. And honestly, this is so important right now, again, because of the pandemic. If my book had been published by a large publishing house in New York City, I would have no control over the distribution of my book, the release time of my book, the advertising budget for my book. So I would have been vulnerable to the economic vicissitudes of the virus. And I am a little bit now, but not as much as I would have been. So I founded Widow Speak Publishing, and I self-published my book. I have published it through Amazon. Amazon does the paperback, print on demand. You order it, they print it and ship it to you. And also through Ingram Spark. Ingram is the big book distributor in the United States and is the main distributor for most bookstores in the United States. And in order for bookstores to carry my book, I wanted them to be able to order it through Ingram's, because that's what they do for a living. They order books through Ingram's. I did not want to ask them to go to Amazon, which is not a normal thing for them to do, and also potentially a competitor of theirs. So I published it these two ways, and that way, if bookstores ever open again, if Amazon's prioritizing shipping books again, people will be able to get my paperback through a bookstore, which is very important to me. I worked, after actually I worked with Nancy, I worked for the largest bookstore in Boston for 3 years doing marketing and advertising. And I know how bookstores operate. And it's very important to me to be a part of the bookstore scene. But that's going to have to wait now. While ebooks are moving fast and furious through the market, Kindle, Apple iBooks, Kobo, and Barnes & Noble Nook all have my book. So the other thing about that is my paperback. So I love this paperback. I love seeing myself. I love touching it and holding it. It's $12.99. But you know what? It has a really big ecological footprint, doesn't it? When you think about it, growing trees and fiber and harvesting trees and fiber to make paper, the print production process, warehousing books, trucking books, shipping books, the packaging, the storage, and then the waste. Because honestly, an awful lot of the books we see in bookstores, they aren't sold. So they tear the cover off the book, and then the book is returned to the publisher as waste, or the book is just discarded, period. So an awful lot of books end up in the waste stream. Yes, I love books, and I put out a paperback because I love books, but ebooks are better for the environment. And my ebook, because I really wanted to encourage people to buy it, is only $7.99, whereas my paperback is $12.99. So it's less expensive. It's better for the environment. You get the book quicker because it's pretty instant. Kindle is free. iBooks is free if you have a Macintosh or an Apple device, an iOS device. And Kobo is very popular in English-speaking countries other than the United States. And through Facebook, I have met many women in Europe and Australia. So I wanted to make sure they could get it. And then Barnes & Noble requires a $35 a year membership for you to get Nook. But Nook is an app. Kobo is an app. Kindle is an app. And so the barriers are very low. And I encourage you to support authors everywhere by downloading these apps and buying books. And the Quarantine Book Club is a great way to do that, because the books that are featured in that book club are books that have debuted during the pandemic.
Well, and we encourage you to buy Billie's book, because Billie is an amazing writer. If you want to get a little sample of her writing, just follow her Facebook page. And she's been posting. You post every Wednesday, right, Billie? Is that right?
I post every Wednesday. I'll be posting on my blog tomorrow. Been working on that blog post today. Tomorrow will be my 65th blog post, so 65 Wednesdays in a row. And my earlier blog posts were much more about midlife and women and menopause and aging, our hair, our wrinkles. My 11s, see this? I learned that on Facebook. I would not have known these were called 11s. See that? My 11s are deep, and I think I've had them since I was a teenager. My mother used to always say, "Stop frowning. Your forehead's going to stay like that forever." Yeah. Oh well.
I hate when they're right.
But now my blog is taking a little bit of a turn to be helpful and hopefully insightful and a little bit amusing about the situation we're living in.
Yeah. Now, one of your most recent blog posts, you wrote about the garden you're starting. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's kind of funny because your sister Beth and her husband Andy built these raised beds in their backyard, and they invited me to take a bed for my own vegetables. And gardening is the thing I really miss most about this life that I have now, living in the city, dedicating myself to writing. And so I was so happy. I mean, I was thrilled. And the thing is, that idea was on a collision course with the pandemic. I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get the seeds I wanted to get by going around to all sorts of different stores and browsing the seed section, because stores were already shutting down. So I ordered seeds online, which I don't regret, but I would never do again, because the packaging was insane. And I didn't realize this, because once again, we have this idea that everything we buy from Amazon is all stacked in a warehouse somewhere, and that somebody's just going to pick it all up, put it in a box, and ship it to us. And that is not how it worked. I ordered, I think, 8 packs of seeds, and they came in 5 different deliveries. Think about that. I have Amazon Prime. So I paid like $3, $4, $5 for a pack of seeds, depending on the plant. And they all came free delivery in a big, like a 9x12 envelope, a standard shipping envelope. And they all came separately. So the ecological footprint of those seeds is really big. And I'm going to have to do something significant to offset that, because I did not realize that would happen. I think in shopping on Amazon, we're often oblivious to the impact of the packaging. And also that during the pandemic, people are picking packs of seeds for me when maybe there were more important things. But I'm very happy to have my seeds, okay? So maybe it was worth the psychological lift. Maybe my psychological lift will enable me to do something wonderful for the environment. I hope so. So I planted the seeds in pots in my apartment, because I realized if I stay here, like right here in this room for the month of April, those seeds maybe will get planted in May. We'll see if we're able to flatten the curve. We'll see if some of the stay-at-home orders are lifted. We'll see how many of our friends are well and how many of our friends are not well. And we'll just make a decision about that in May. But in the meantime, I was like a little kid who couldn't wait for Christmas. And so I planted some herbs and vegetable seeds in my apartment in pots. And we'll just see if they grow. It gives me something to do. I stand over the soil and kind of stare and, do some little dance.
All right, everybody. So tell us what you're doing to keep hopeful during the pandemic. What new skills are you learning? What things are you going back to that you haven't done in a long time that are bringing you joy? And in the meantime, we have a question from Lisa Barbosa, who says, I'm finding my outlook in general has changed since I'm now in my early 60s. Billie, do you feel the same in regards to your outlook and writing your books?
I do feel like my outlook has changed. It's a funny thing, age, right? Because when you're in your 20s, I knew Nancy when she was in my 20s. By then I was in my 30s. But so, when you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, I think you are driven by some idea of how you want your life to be. Maybe it's finding a life partner, getting a job, buying a house, having kids, making a certain amount of money, dressing a certain way. But you, I think, naturally have a driving vision for where you want to go with your life. And I did have that all the way until I sold my farm in 2016 when I was 62. And the thing that I discovered was that my farm was a plan I had in my late 40s that lasted 20 years. And I was just still on that same track. And suddenly, I wasn't on the track that I started in my 40s anymore. And I didn't have a new track. I did not have a plan for myself. I did not have a vision. I did not have some, when I get into my 60s, I want to do X, Y, and Z and be this kind of person and live in this kind of place and have these kinds of relationships and achieve these kinds of goals. I had none of that. I mean, I was really just cut loose and drifting. And I did drive for 10,000 miles, trying to figure it out. That's really how I got here. In the time that I've been here, I've had a lot of opportunity to think about what it means to age. And of course, since I've been writing a memoir, it's been a big review of my history. And now I think what makes a woman powerful in her 60s, 70s, and 80s is this combination of her intelligence and her experiences, all of them, good, bad, and ugly, and her perspective on those experiences. How do you feel about them? How do you categorize them? What do you see as success? Because now I see success differently. First of all, I'm here. That's success. And second of all, I'm not ashamed anymore. So that's a really big milestone in my life. I've written a book. That is success. I am sharing my stories and committing myself to sharing my stories. And that's a mission that I feel. And I feel it as a mission because I feel like I've cracked the code on this phase in my life, and I want to share it. I want to share it because women my age are not in the media. Women my age, most of them, there are not a lot of TV shows of women in their 60s and 70s. And I know Frankie and Grace and Golden Girls are out there. But, come on, really? That's the same two shows forever and ever that you're going to keep bringing up every time I say there's not enough shows about women my age? I'm sorry. I do not identify with the Golden Girls in the least. And Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin are brilliant women, and I love them. But they are rich. And their show is about rich women. And they can have all that plastic surgery to keep them looking fabulous. And they have those amazing homes that are super duper status symbols. And they don't really feel like real life to me. So yeah, it's funny and I love them and they're really smart and I have a lot of admiration for their willingness to be goofy in the same way I would admire Lucille Ball and Mary Tyler Moore for being willing to go out there and be goofy. But I feel like I would like to see more women my age, that is women in their 60s and 70s, playing leading roles in media properties who are serious and smart and funny and together and dominant. I would like to see some dominant women in their older years because a lot of the time we're expected to just sit back and disappear and be submissive. Now, clearly, I'm not doing that, right? And I think there's a lot of women who aren't doing that, but we need to see that. And one cool thing about private groups on Facebook is I learned in the last year that there are millions of women my age who are strong and smart and aggressive and capable and are doing things that are really worth knowing about. And so I want to speak for those women and I want to speak out about age. And I really want to get across this idea that part of age is integrating yourself. So all these parts of me, the parts that are in the book, the parts that aren't in the book, my emotions, my thoughts, my experience, my IQ, my loves and hates, my family, the various places I've lived, all the jobs that I've had, all my pets, my farm animals, living in this apartment, getting to know a new city. It's all part of me. And age is the process of integrating all those parts into a whole woman. I am a whole woman. All my parts are in play. They're functioning at a really high level. That's what gives me my resilience. That's what gives me my power. That's what gives me the confidence to be able to shoot off my mouth for an hour with you. And I want other women to feel the same way about themselves because we need to take over the world, guys. We really need women to take over the world. Guys have had it long enough. They've done an okay job. I mean, the Sistine Chapel is really nice. Or the Middle East, not so much. So we really, really need women to take power and bring some common sense and the point of view of a caregiver to leadership on planet Earth.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. So are you going to write another book?
I am going to write another book, and I've really been thinking about that. I have a few ideas for it, and I'm not going to talk about them right now because they're still rattling around in my head. Also, I think, I've done 65 blog posts, and I'm planning to go through the rest of this year, 2020. So by the time I get to the end of this year, I will have like 100 blog posts. They're not all great, but I think probably 50 of them are worth rereading. And so I'm coming up with a concept for how to create an anthology of my like 50 best blog posts for release sometime at the end of this year.
Awesome. Great.
We have some comments and questions. Claudia says, I'm so appreciating Billie's perspective. Somebody says, preach sister. Not sure who's saying that, but preach sister. People are telling us what they're up to right now during the lockdown. Someone's saying they have more time to be creative. Their kids are grown, so they're trying new things. And they're asking, are there any new things on your horizon, Billie?
Well, when my seeds sprout, I'm going to do it. That'll be the newest thing. Not a lot goes on here in this room. I'm writing a lot. One of the last things I ordered on Amazon before I kind of cut myself off from that was a saucepan. Because, when I first moved here, since I thought I was really just camping for a few months, I didn't have a lot of cookware. I didn't think I was going to need it. And then, there are a lot of amazing restaurants in Portland. And so I found myself eating out a lot. And now, of course, not eating out a lot and need a little more than camping cookware in my apartment. So I ordered another saucepan. So I have 2 saucepans, one for rice and one for beans. And I just want to say, one of my newest things is 1,001 ways to make rice and beans, because if it's out there, I'm looking for the recipe for it. It has to be basic spices and really, those ingredients that you have in your refrigerator right now. And I'll tell you what I really miss. I miss cilantro. I really miss cilantro. Oh,
are you growing it? Is that
I was putting cilantro on Mexican food and Indian food and Middle Eastern food. Then I went to the grocery store. Maybe this is all in my mind, but I don't think so. I went to the grocery store. No one was wearing face masks. Lots and lots of people shopping. Like I was in the produce department with maybe 20 other people. And those long aisles of produce, lettuce, carrots, onions, beets, all kinds of greens, out in that shelf that sprays water to keep things moist and cold. So it's bare naked to the air. I'm looking at all these people lean over and breathe on it and touch stuff and pick out things. And I couldn't buy it. It just felt too creepy to me. And, I don't know the science. I'm just projecting. I don't know if cilantro could have made me sick or not, but it didn't feel like buying it. And so, it's going to be a long time before I have cilantro again, because I'm not buying cilantro that doesn't come in a container from wherever it's grown. I'm not buying bunches of raw fruits and vegetables where my Instacart shopper has to touch every single thing they put in my bag. I never even thought about that before. I was very cavalier about these things before on the farm. Are you kidding? I would eat dirt. But dirt seems pretty clean to me right now compared to some of the stuff that's out there. So new thing is cooking a lot more with actually much simpler ingredients, which adds some real creativity. I'm reading more, partly because so many authors have been blocked by the pandemic. I feel an obligation to read, but also to review. And this is kind of a weird thing to say, but I never really thought about reviewing books before, because I always thought if I reviewed a book, it's just me thinking I'm important. It was me thinking, oh, my opinion of this book is so important. You must know. And now I'm realizing that when you review a book, you saying that you read it and offering your thoughts on it is a way of supporting the author by expanding the realm of content around their book. And because I really want people to review my book, of course I do, I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to go back and write like a dozen reviews for all the book I read in the last year and really get it in my head that it's a nice thing to do for an author to share your thoughts on their book.
That's great.
Seems like you've also been doing some video blogs, which we've been excited to see.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are the ones who got me into that. I would never have done it. It's so funny because it's another one of those things where I was telling myself, you know, I'm a writer. I love to write. You know, the alphabet to me is like the same as picking up those kernels of white rice off the floor. It's meticulous work. I'm very fussy about it. And I love doing it, and there's no end to it. I mean, it's like tatting or needlepoint. You know, it's delicate work that's very detailed, and I'm persnickety about it. And I don't mind doing it and promoting myself because I feel like it's a skill I have and I'm good at it. But video, if you guys hadn't told me months ago now, I think it was almost like 6 months ago now, that you thought I should do some kind of video blog, it would have never even occurred to me. Because it was another one of those moments where I thought, oh, that's just your ego there, baby. You need to stamp that down. Nobody really wants to hear people have to say, come on, you know, go read a book. And well, then I saw, oh, this is gonna work out really well for you. I got your Passionistas pack, the box, the purple box. Yay! And I saw the unboxing videos, which also, this is probably an age thing. I had never watched an unboxing video before. I mean, I knew they were out there, but I never ordered a box till yours, and I never watched an unboxing video because why would I? I mean, why would I? But as soon as I watched them, and I watched like 3 of them, and I was like, oh, those gals are kind of cute. And they're funny. And they're using this unboxing thing as like a stand-up comedy routine. And they're, you know, and all of a sudden I totally got it in a way I didn't before. Yep. So one of the things about my book, okay, one of the things about my book is that the paperback came out before I ever saw it. So this was available on Amazon before I ever put my hands on it. And that was very weird because I am a control freak. And the idea that my book was out for other people to get before I even had my own copy of it, that was hard for me to reconcile. But of course, I didn't want to stop it because there was some momentum. So thanks to you, I did my unboxing video with my book. And you know what? It was kind of cute. I mean,
it was fun. I watched it live. It was really fun.
Yes.
It was great to share that moment with you.
So I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be long. Mm-hmm. And it could just be off the cuff. It doesn't have to be rehearsed. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all those things I just had to see it for myself, that it would be okay to put up something that was short and imperfect online on my Facebook page, and that people would like it. So Pam from the Quarantine Book Club asked me to do a thing where I answered questions about my book and then posted it in their group, and I did that. And there were like 10 other authors who also did it. And I watched all 10 of their videos. And it was very instructive because, you know, I have been on stage before. I have been a public speaker. I did have my own radio show in the Albany area for like a year. And I'm a blabbermouth. And I am not intimidated by the camera. I just needed a rationale for it that gave me some kind of purpose other than seeing my own face. And so I had that purpose by answering those questions. And my video was really long because I'm long-winded, as you can see. And then I was like, okay, we can do this. So I did a short video about the planting the seeds of hope in my apartment. And then yesterday, I did a 3-minute video on homemade face masks. And I think this is very important. And as Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who is my new fantasy fuck, said that he thought it was going to be a new market on Etsy because it's not a 100% effective way of preventing you from getting sick or preventing other people from getting sick, but it is a marginally effective way of keeping your breath drops contained around your face by a piece of cloth. And the cloth can be a bandana. It can be a headband or a cowl or a scarf. I had a turtleneck that I hated, so I cut the turtle off it, and it makes a nice face mask. You know,
this is the neck.
Like 6 face masks out of an old T-shirt. The point is, I protect you, you protect me. I could be a carrier. There's a very good chance I'm a carrier. There's a very good chance you guys are carriers. None of us know. That's the whole problem of the pandemic. If we knew who carriers were, we could put little hats and just stay away from them. But we don't know because we don't have a test for that. And even if we did have a test, you can have that test one day and say, I'm not a carrier. And then a week later, you can touch somebody who is a carrier and you are a carrier. So even a test that shows us whether we're carriers or not could create a false sense of security. So the best thing to do is social distancing. And there are some situations in which we're not able to be as distant as we would like. For example, my elevator. For example, waiting in line at the store. For example, people on the escalator. You know, these are just situations we find ourselves in where we are in somebody else's breath stream. And so what's the best thing you could do is just block your breath stream. Just block it. You don't need an N95 mask. You don't need a medical mask. You shouldn't be taking important healthcare supplies away from healthcare workers. It's just a simple technique for keeping your respiratory droplets in your own zone, you know, and not allowing them to go a few feet in front of you. Catch them on a homemade face mask. And so that was my blog post yesterday. And it's been a little controversial. So we'll see.
Interesting.
We'll see.
I thought it was great.
First experience with controversy. And I think I'm handling it really well.
Stick up your lip. We have a question, which is, please ask Billie about her doing an audio book in her own voice. It would be fab.
You know, that is a very interesting topic because I would love to do an audiobook in my own voice. And there's part of me that just wants to do it now. But how am I going to do that unless I record it myself? And that's tricky. I have okay technology, but not great technology. And the technology barrier is a little bit daunting. But on the other hand, here we are. We're all here. We're like right here. And so I'm looking for new ideas about how to read my book and have people able to hear me read it as though it were an audiobook, but maybe some kind of video spin on that. I don't know. I really have to think about it, but it's so easy for me to record myself on my computer, you know, a video of myself using QuickTime. I don't know if this is a good idea, but it's an idea that's occurred to me. It's occurred to me to literally hold my book and read it out loud while I'm on camera. And my book is 21 chapters. Maybe I would post 20 or 30 different Vimeo shorts on my Vimeo channel of me reading my book out loud. I don't know. But that's something that has occurred to me that I do have the technology to do. That in this moment where we're all improvising with our lives and our talents and our skills, it might be cool. So we'll see.
Well, we're going to launch a Passionistas project talent show, so that can be your talent. You can pick a chapter to read.
Oh, cool.
Virtual talent show. You heard it here first. Breaking news. Breaking news from the Passionistas project.
Breaking news from the Passionistas project. Yeah.
Yeah. Who says live installment? Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people want you to do that, Billie.
Yeah.
Oh, they like the idea of the reading the book out loud on little video clips.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, now
so many comments.
Pardon me?
Should we wrap this up, ladies?
I think
can talk
unfortunately
forever.
we have to.
We could talk forever, and you know, I got a blog to write, so.
All right.
Everybody else has
Thank you so much for having me. And you know, please,
so much fun.
How I Made a Huge Mess of My Life or Couples Therapy with a Dead Man. I think you'll really like it, and I so appreciate your support because I'm home alone, and this means a lot.
We love you, Billie. Billie's the best, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Go
Take
read
care.
her book. It's awesome. She's awesome. Follow her on Facebook.
Yes.
I promise you, once a week, you will get a dose of fantastic writing and insight. It'll make you laugh. She makes me laugh every week. What else, Nan?
Just our typical sign off. Stay home, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay passionate, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Billie. Have a great week,
Bye,
everybody.
bye, Billie.
Bye.
Take care. See you later.
So, Billie, we can still see you and hear you, but no one else can.
Hi, guys.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
That was so fun.
Good.
That was